Good evening. Welcome to the study session of February 2025. I was going to say 2024, but I did not. Donna, you do a roll call, please.
I will. Councilmember Blush.
Here.
Councilmember Stearns.
Here.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Here.
Mayor Nesco.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sherman.
Here.
Councilmember Sapp.
Here.
And Councilmember Gutierrez.
Here. Thank you, Donna. Tonight we have a study session. I'm sorry, City Manager Mark Ziegler has information for us about the 2025 city work plan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Don't leave out our department directors back here too, because
Yeah.
they're going to participate tonight as well. I'm going to kick us off with administration. You've seen this probably about a year ago, tonight or close to it, our 2024 work plans. This is produced by each department annually to give the council and the public an idea of some annual programs and major projects that we're working towards. You'll see, depending on the department, some process improvements and kind of just some, I guess, just efforts that are ongoing within the department. Some departments really have less projects than others, right? Public Works is performing a lot of projects within our utilities, finance, maybe not so many. It's more process driven and ongoing work. So you'll see a few things that varies between the departments. We'll highlight, and touch on these as we move through the list here for you tonight. Please feel free as we go through and ask any questions as we kind of highlight these. Again, I'll start with the administration. That encompasses city manager, clerk, communications, human resource, and risk management. We have our ongoing comprehensive plan efforts throughout the rest of this year. So continue to communicate the efforts in that comprehensive plan update through all of our media outlets is really important as we move forward. We have one more guild, our Shelton Employees Guild, we're negotiating with this year. So we get an effort through human resources. We've got some more work to do with WCA and our updating our asset list for coverage purposes. On the second page, citywide safety program. This has been an ongoing effort amongst a number of departments. So Andrew Sharp, human resources managers meeting. And then the second item on page 2 is a transportation benefit district ballot measure. We've talked about that a number of times. We've scheduled some time on March 25th study session to discuss that and process moving forward. There will be, I think, more people involved than was just listed in the matrix there throughout the city, helping to get the message out for that ballot measure. Opioid funds programming, as Finance Director Gibbons mentioned a week ago. We have outstanding balance from opioid settlements. In the state of Washington, those funds are sitting in the account. We need to find the appropriate avenues to expend those funds and allocate those to our community for the appropriately settled upon measures. We've got some compensation study work to do for non-represented staff. This is typically done with our represented staff through the negotiation period, but non-represented staff, has been done comprehensively and as long as I can remember. So I think it's really important as we move down to the next category, retention, recruitment, and engagement of our employees. We need to understand, we need to minimize the loss of employees. We need to retain our employees as much as we can. It costs us dramatically more money to move employees in, read through them, bring them on board. So great efforts through our human resource department to bring some of these measures in place. The next one, part-time and seasonal wage classification representation. We've had some legal opinions lately. It's our seasonals and part-time staff very well should be allocated to labor guilds that were specifically included in. So we have some catch-up to do there, and have some negotiation with some of our labor groups and getting some of those employees allocated within those labor groups. The last one for administration department is a council retreat. We have set that for May 5th. May 5th. I think that for almost everybody. That is on your calendars. So we'll have some more information, but again, we're going to focus on service level expectations, developing that as we move forward. We'll kind of lead up with a couple study sessions, talking more about budget. So hopefully we can announce fully of what in fund balance looks like, what our anticipated revenues and expenditures look like for 2025, so we can kind of separate the funds, the money from our service level discussions, so we can better understand what the council's anticipated service levels are throughout our services in the city, and develop our 2026 budget, hopefully moving forward from there into 2026 as well. So pretty quick rundown of the administration. So if I have any questions, I'm happy to answer those. All right, I'll move on to community development. Jay Hill is not available tonight. He's at a meeting.
I have one question for the
Please.
open funding. We find out if we're able to use those for therapeutic courts at all?
I haven't even approached that subject. I've looked through the legislation, or at least the settlement language, and the problem is it's not clear. They're bulleted points. It's treatment, it's education, it's support of first responders, and they're as vague as that. So I want to do some research and really see what kind of programs fall into those categories, so I can give the council some opportunities to weigh in on where you best like to see those funds distributed. Again, community development, continuing. I think it's important to keep this program here, the hazardous structure abatement. We've talked about a couple structures that have been through fires lately. We're getting those scheduled for the hearing examiner to make a ruling, so we can go through the abatement process with those. We haven't had luck with the owners. Thought we had some luck with the owners, and they've kind of strung along their demo permits. But that is our process through our municipal code, is we reach out to the property owners, notice violation, hopefully voluntary correction agreements. They agree with those voluntary correction agreements, they take out the demo permits or a reconstruction permit. Building's viable. If they don't, then we go to the abatement process and go to the hearing examiner and get a ruling from the quasi judicial process there. So we want to continue the investment in some of these buildings and become a light in our community and our neighborhoods with this program, as well as the community cleanup program. As you know, the comprehensive plan update is ongoing through the end of this year. So that is a continuing effort for community development. Continue to work on efforts to bring the Crosstown Trail to fruition, as well as that creative district. You will see, I think it's in March as well, at the, we're doing on the 25th as well, March study session, a presentation on multifamily tax exemption ordinance. So this would allow for multifamily units that meet the threshold of AMI to receive some tax exemptions in certain areas of the community. So we'll discuss that more in March. We have ongoing efforts with our EnerGov permitting software. It seems like that's an ever evolving project. And maintaining that system, making sure it's up to date and it's useful by our community when it's fully functioning. I think we're getting good feedback that this is an avenue from our builders and our construction community, that they can obtain the data they need 24/7. They can apply for permits 24/7 and schedule their inspections all through that portal, and not have to wait in line, not wait for a phone call or anything like that. So we continue to work with Tyler Technologies to make sure that that system is up and implemented and fully functioning. Animal licensing, I think this is a little broader with animal control, animal services, shelter services that we'll be having multiple discussions on as we move the rest of this year, as we approach the last week of February. Moving along pretty darn fast. And that summarizes community economic development. If you have any questions there, I'm happy to answer any of those. Sorry, moving through quick. Okay, all right. I'll ask Judge Greer to help us out with municipal alerts.
Please.
Right in front of the microphone.
Hi. So administrator is on the way to training, so
Yeah.
you're doomed to see me. And so we did present to the city a work plan. I just skim over it. If you have any questions, let me know. So the highlights I want to hit is our first page talks about our treatment court. I'll let you know we had a bit of a funding crisis about 30 days ago, but we have fixed that. And so the court is fully funded, but all the funding comes from the state of Washington. It also, the funding includes the treatment, interpreters, assistance with district court probation. The public defender gets money through Office of Public Defense. The prosecutor, $2,000 a month comes that grant that goes through the general fund for the city, state money. And then we have a court facilitator that's a retired judge of a jurisdiction, who's bilingual, also paid by the grant. So it's 100% not funded by the city and helps pay for your prosecutor as well. It's going very well. We have nobody who has a new conviction since they graduated, but sadly we did have one with a pending charge. So nothing's perfect. But that is going very well, and our goal is to keep that going and continue to lobby for the money down again. And judges went down a couple weeks ago to lobby for many things, including treatment money. Our local representatives are very supportive of the program, and we're hoping they'll save the budget to the state court, which will then come down to us. More mundane things, I'll jump to our mandatory parts of our work plan. This one, bigger sheet, but we are going to pay for this year. My staff is trained in Vancouver all the way tomorrow. They left tonight. And we'll have e-filing and Odyssey and Enterprise. And the bottom line is all paper will be gone. It is not a choice. It's mandated by the state court system. We've been preparing for over a year, so we believe it's going to go smoothly. Fingers crossed. There's always some hiccups, but staff is visits in a place for this year. It's already occurred. I work in a place, but not here, where it's already occurred. And so far, so good. Trainings involved. There's a lot of nervousness with my staff because they're used to going on the paper. But I have a lot of faith in them. The transition is going to go well. It'll reduce the cost of paper. We've already reduced a lot over the last couple of years anyway. Electronically sending everything to the attorneys so we get paper copies. There will now be no paper anything. So our goal is to get that in place and set the equipment for it. Have the IT of the city assist the IT with the state to come up here and transfer it and put it in files. Another thing I want to highlight is our community service program. Somebody may know this kid was gone for medical reasons for a while, but she's now back. That program helps reduce jail costs. It also helps keep up litter in town, and Jerry's back will increase because while she was gone, Jason Ghost was nice enough to cover up the 5 days. She really appreciated it, but now we got something out there 4 days a week. One, I'd also note that Jerry does fingerprints, which is a station over there by the door. There's law enforcement that's going to find that, and the court is authorized to do it. There's pending legislation that makes it more clear the court can do it, but that's kind of gray area. And also, a new announcement is Jerry is going to be trained in how to give a shoplifting class for offenders, which we linked into our community court part of our treatment court. That's the request of the prosecutor. And that does not fit the parameters of our current court funding from the state. So we're going to try to roll that in. As you all know, there's a lot of shoplifting. That 3 issues in the city. We'd like to catch some of the first timers at the very, very beginning. See if we can find a way to keep them coming 7 timers. It's the best way to put it. And so that's the goal there. So she's busy. So our mandatory duties obviously we do every day is process all criminal matters that are filed with us, all civil matters that are filed with us. And the filings are increasing. But your police chief is probably happy about that. And our job is to handle everything. We're happy to do so. It's going smoothly. Our calendar is getting a little bit larger. That's all I have. Just a question.
One little question. So you said you had one who slipped back from your program, but I'm curious out of how many?
Graduate about 20 people in general.
Okay, so 1 out of 20. That's pretty good.
There's no such thing as a perfect one.
Right.
The best way to look at it is that individual was here for alcohol and drug issues. And I'm not trying to make money, but the new offense is nothing to do without money. It's driving without license, which is something we try to help people with or in the program. But they don't get the license after many attempts to test it, and they were caught driving, but not drunk. So
Well, that's good.
I want to look at that.
I haven't heard much in the last few weeks about the Washington State Bar Association mandatory reduced case count for public defenders. What's the new news on that? Or is any
Silence is abuse.
silence is the news?
And
State Supreme Court is very divided. I went
Okay.
to a conference in the fall, which includes city judges, county court judges, and Superior Court judges, fellow judges, and the state Supreme Court. State Supreme Court judges were clearly extremely divided. There was some friction between them at the conference about that issue. They're supposed to come out decision last fall. Silence. Around February, silence. So they made no decision.
So business as usual then. And
Nothing's changed at the moment. There's a lot of pressure to not change the guidelines for public defenders. And I think one of the best presentations was made by the Okanagan prosecutor. And he pointed out to them, what about the victims? They're fine.
Right.
What's going to happen to them? You change the case loads. It's not about public defenders. Prosecutors will be forced to dismiss cases. And what's the price to pay when it comes to victims? That seemed to have a big impact on them. So right now they've done nothing.
No news is good news.
That's where we are so far.
Any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Judge.
Next up, right here.
As Mark mentioned, much of what we do have that, especially involves big projects, are usual, their annual development of the budget, the completion of the annual financial report, shepherding the audit through its process. So a few highlights of some projects that I think might be of interest. We want to focus on better utilizing the Tyler system. So in a couple of those areas, budget is one. When I came, we were using a separate software and cost about $50,000. We cut that out to just use Tyler. But we're not still fully using it as far as the development goes. We're out in Excel spreadsheets. We forecast personnel in Excel. We bring it into pivot tables. It's very dependent on individual staff members' knowledge. And my concern always is if we have turnover, that knowledge then leaves. We need to use the system, so we're going to train up and better use it for position budgeting and having that in the system. So that's one aspect of using Tyler better. As part of our contract with them, we get 3 spots to their annual conference. We're sending one person from finance. My hope is he'll be able to really work with some of the consultants there on using budget and attend some of those sessions. The other area is in our procurement area. So through the purchasing process, we're going to be bringing you some policies related to purchasing. We kind of attached to this is really training our staff so that we have one purchasing and contracts manager. And sometimes things, choose one person, they just get bogged down there. So better training our staff to be able to go out and make purchases, following the thresholds, really empowering them to have those tools to do that. Part of it also is using the purchase order module in Tyler. So currently, if we make a PO, we do it out in Excel, we give it a number, but it doesn't actually function in the finance system so that we encumber. So in other words, we might put PO in for $25,000, and then that will encumber it out of budget. So people don't have to kind of do that math in their head and say, well, we have these 3 POs out there. So really, we don't have that much budget. So we want to use the software better. So that's all kind of related to the Tyler software system. Some other highlights of this, as you know, IT is with finance. So we really want to look at, along with kind of the purchasing piece and finance, IT, how does it really function? What are our service levels? And we'll be talking with you more about that in the presentation on May 5th. So that's something we're looking at, kind of our investment in technology, how we're operating with that. Another piece of know is of interest to you is our business and occupation tax system. So we're going to be looking at the software we currently have. So that's a separate software outside of Tyler. So staff are doing quite a bit of manual work to get the information that our businesses send us into that software. It doesn't allow for a business to do anything online or really efficiently. I'm just going to say, currently businesses have to complete that either by hand or, well, really that's the only option, to print it out, complete it by hand, mail it in and send us a check. And that's just not very friendly to the year 2025 and all of the technology. So we want to get that brought up so it's easier. We're asking people to pay a tax. I believe it should be more straightforward and easy, allowing them to submit a payment online and complete that online. So we want to either get our current vendor to be able to allow that, or we need to look at some other options to do that. That's probably the biggest complaint I hear, and I really agree with it. It's not an efficient system. We also are hoping that either through our current system or if we go to a new software, that we can do some monitoring, send some reminder letters, such as, you know, you filed for a city business license, but you didn't return a B&O tax form. You know, checking in with people. That was something we heard through that financial sustainability task force that, you know, make it fair, hold everybody accountable. So we're going to for sure look at that. And the last thing I'll share with you, and when we were developing the 2025 budget, particularly in our enterprise funds, water, sewer, storm, one of the things that we noticed was the credit card fees that were charged are pretty high. We also, another concern I'm given often by citizens is that fee that's charged by our third-party vendor. When we were at the Finance Officers Association conference, talked with a couple of vendors where there are some other options. And so we're going to explore that. I'm not going to make any promises, but I feel like it's would be good for our citizens and good for the city, which is also good for them, is if we're not having to pay as much in our transaction fees. And if we can get that fee reduced or eliminated, that people are charged for using a credit card, I think that would be a big win for our citizens and us as the city. So we're going to, that's on the work plan to look at this year also. And so I'm hopeful in our initial talks that we can possibly get that going. So along with just then the normal work that we do, that those are some of the highlights of the 2025 work plan. For fun.
Questions?
I agree with the B&O tax. It's very cumbersome, the current program.
It's labor intensive for our staff as well.
I imagine it is when you're getting these individually just at random
Yeah.
times.
You have to file, sort of. It's
Right.
just,
We're still using a separate old computer for that. We upgrade that. We remember we were using a really old computer for
Yeah,
that.
it's an old ASP program.
yes, we have a new software, but I'm still want to have, that's what I mean. you know,
Maybe that
come
way.
up to a better,
Modern pattern.
yeah. But not being able to complete that online, having to submit a check, it's archaic and cumbersome.
And it's easy to forget about it.
It is, very,
I think frankly, we just looked at a replacement to the ASB. We didn't look at expanding the services we were providing at the time when it's called Vision now. So I
yes,
think,
that's the software.
now, a little more effort, a little more due diligence, I think we could have looked at it, expanding the service to better meet some of the goals that Mike was just referring to.
So that's the hope, that we can either get our current vendor to do that or find somebody to, enough cities. Certainly the state, they're kind of on a different platform, but enough cities have a B&O tax system that I'm convinced we can get something to work for.
Well, the state definitely knows if you forget to pay them, I'll tell you that. On the B&O, so Tyler does not have a module for that? That's shocking.
Not yet.
I mean, we're a city, Tyler, city software.
And they specialize really in municipal financial
That's
software.
interesting.
And I don't-
They started.
I don't know in other states if B&O is a common thing, so it may not be something that is enough demand for them.
Any other questions, I guess?
Oh, just looking forward for you to find someone that can eliminate those extra fees that people have to pay when they have to pay their water bill. That would be awesome.
We'll work on it.
All
Thanks,
right,
Mike.
thank you, Mike.
Thanks.
Chief, thank you. And Hudson.
Good evening. Our 2025 work plan, as it was in the past, always includes our recruitment and retention. That's so important to us. We actually did very well last year. We didn't lose a single officer to another agency or retirement or anything. So our numbers are just about up there. We actually hired a new officer even next month. Then we'll have one more vacancy after that. So just look forward to keep our information updated with CJPC and keep the public informed when we have an opening, so we can know it sooner rather than later. It's been over 3 years since we've been fully staffed, and so we may actually achieve that this year. And so we're kind of excited because I will bring forth new programs that we can bring to the community. Staff is up. Last year, we developed an officer wellness program. That's also a WASPIC standard for our accreditation. So we developed a committee. I'm on that one with a sergeant and a few officers. So we have quarterly meetings, and we're going to continue to develop that this year. There's wellness apps for the officers that we can get them tied into. And we're working on upgrading our fitness and it's a package for it. So looking forward to more movement on our officer wellness program this year. So, and as always, employee development's always huge. We're always developing our younger officers and our supervisors. We got to think about the future. We're this year. We want to get all our sergeants up to a middle management certification with CJTC. That is mandated by accreditation due to the structure of our department. So just looking forward to always just trying to get our officers more well developed and grow on it to take on our future leadership. Some new things with community relations this year that we want to do. Well, we want to team up with MCSO this year and do another Citizens Academy. We think we can provide a lot more content with that. They have programs that we don't, and we can make it more of a robust Citizens Academy this year. So we're working on that. I'm hoping to get that out maybe late summer, maybe fall time or something like that, as soon as we can strategize with them. Also, the National Night Out last year was the first time that we did a National Night Out. And quite a while, I don't even know how many years. So that was a big success, and we are hoping to do a little bit something different this year and do something more local within the city, because we did it out our district was out of Arcadia last year. So I'd like to do something close in town, downtown this year, and hopefully, team up with Mason County again and local fire department, and have a national night out here downtown.
We'd like to expand that, city departments, really highlight city services and bring more people together.
And with the possibility of us being full staff this year, I'd like to implement a foot or a bike patrol downtown area, if we can have the enough officers to cover the streets. Sometimes we're down to 2 officers and we don't have the ability to stray away from our vehicles very long because when your partner needs help, running halfway around the city to get to your car to get to your partner. So, but if our numbers dictate that we can, I'd like to institute a more formal foot or a bike patrol, predominantly in the downtown area, but the bike patrol could go further out into the city. And as always, every year, Toys for Tots Drive and our Shop at the Cop will be events that we attend. This year is a big year for our accreditation maintenance. This is going to be year 3 out of 4 that we have to prove. When it comes to our year 3 accreditation, we have a total of 146 standards now, over 18 chapters. And for most of these accreditation standards, you have to show the proofs within the last 2 years of that accreditation cycle. So this is the first year that we can probably get 95% of our work done, because we only have 1 more year to go, and it's in the last 2 years. So we can really make leaps and bounds towards reaccreditation in 2027 by getting a lot of this work done up front. I've been on the receiving end where you have to push it out later, and that's not really a great time, because you're really struggling to get all this done. It's a very tedious process. So starting this accreditation maintenance this year and getting basically around 95%, and we got all next year to finish up, put a bow on everything and be ready for reaccreditation 2027. Technology and equipment. We have a lot of things coming out this year. First, we're looking at implementing an online reporting program. The budget is already there for it. It was one of the budget requests I did for last year. That'll consist of someone being able to go to the city website and hit a tab and be able to file a police report for certain types of circumstances, not all of them, but things that, you don't have a suspect, or they just, maybe it's a car accident that they want to report, they could report that online. And then what would happen with that report is it would get assigned a case number. It would go to one of my sergeants, and they would look at the report, and they would dictate the routing for that particular report, whether it needed to go to detectives, whether it's just for information or just follow up. So just trying to reach out different avenues where citizens can contact us and report anything to us. We go to a lot of, we hear a lot of people just not reporting crimes. Just they want to call, I didn't think of it. So I'm just hoping that other avenue for them to get in contact with us. That's the what's going on. Lock installation should have started last week, hopefully. I have not gotten an update. They were supposed to start putting cameras up on 18th. I'm going to follow up with them and see if they started yet or not. I'm assuming they didn't. So I'll be recontacting them and seeing what the issue is, but we should see that fairly quick now. We're also looking in creating an SPD Instagram and a Facebook account. It's important to get what's going on out in the city out there as soon as we can. Safety issues, traffic issues. If we've got a road closed, we want to be able to get that up to the public as soon as possible, so they're aware. They can go there that area, or when we have a serious incident or something, we can start telling people what's going on and where to go instead of them just showing up and going wherever they want to go. So we can kind of dictate and route them to particular locations because that helps us when we're on scene and we're dealing with these situations because we already have enough going on. We don't need people, outsiders, rushing into this thing, confusing it because we don't know who they are, and then it takes away from our task at hand. So we start getting out the word early on this type of situations, get people to the right place for reunification. And also we want to put out good things too. It's not all just about, avoid this or, do this and that, but we want to exemplify, our achievement through the police department and want to show, what these officers are doing out there. So I'd expect also there to be some positive things on those accounts as well that you receive. Also, we've had this year, we're getting a lot of new equipment regarding firearms. We're getting new pistols with RDS and some red dot sights. And we're getting the new tasers. And we're also getting a few more less than lethal shotguns. And we've also got our new rifles coming in. And well, they are. We're just getting ready to roll out all these. They all have to be retrained on these, so it takes a little time to get the training days in line so they can be familiar with their new equipment. Some of the equipment we have just was it just wasn't functional. Some of it just wasn't functional anymore. Our tasers were just not working anymore. They were break qualifying. 10 of our rifles, we got those back in 2007. So those are extremely old rifles. We've been having to repair them over the last quite a few years just to keep them up and going. They were never meant to last that long. So everyone's going to be situated with a new rifle or a semi-new rifle that was modified. They're all going to be the same. And these rifles that they're going to be issued, they're going to qualify for the next one should last over 10 years. So it's a great investment. And, it could be a liability issue if you put, a weapon into their hand that is not functioning correctly or is having problems and we're fixing it. Most of our officer safety issue. We just want to give them the best equipment possible to go out there and do their job.
Speaking of that, the criminal justice trainings today, I think banned that, was it a 320?
P3, the 6 hour
Yeah.
320.
Yes. Does that affect that?
There's a 320, there's the M18 and the M19 they banned because they were having actual discharges when they were just in the officer's holster. They weren't even touching the weapon, just somehow, whatever the officer was doing at that time, the gun discharges. And in one of the incidents is one of the officers was shot in the leg while searching a vehicle, I believe. So yeah, those are not allowed on the CJTC campus anymore. I ordered that study to all my firearms instructors, and so we're not going to have any of those around us as well. So
Yeah, we talked a lot about that in the mayor's conference, and then today I actually saw an email saying that they've actually banned them now. That
yeah,
I don't know if we have any of those or not, but they explained that the guns were going off by themselves. They were dropping them and they were going off, and I think I did hear the officer shot himself in the leg. But
yeah, and 6 hour was settled back for a couple million or something. We had a few different plaintiffs.
well, they said there were some arguments over that didn't happen that way, but they did a lot of testing, and yeah, it did happen that way.
And last year we had a peer review of our records and evidence divisions. We had some very nice people come. They have their own company. It's Law Enforcement Records Network. They came in and assessed our records and evidence departments and gave us some good pointers on what we can do to be better organized, to have better programs in place. So we're planning on implementing a lot of their suggestions this next year. One of the big ones is we're going to go paperless. We have the systems already in place to go paperless, so it's just getting everyone trained up and getting everyone's mind around what we're going to do and how we're going to accomplish it. So
They're like going to have like a little iPad out in the field and type of the report on the.
they can already do that on the computers out there, and they can submit their documents to the jail online. They can submit documents to dispatch online. They can submit their reports. online to supervisor, so, you know, and we have the systems in place to store all that. Spellman can hold all our reports and our pictures, and then GTAC, which holds our body cam, can hold all our body cams and video information, video evidence with that from any scenes or anything like that. And so we have the storage capacity right now to do it. It's just getting things in line and switching to go. And that's all I have.
All right, questions for King?
Yes.
Pretty exciting.
We mentioned that a little bit earlier, particularly in the police department, the cost for recruitment and bringing somebody on, you know, we talked about entry level, and they go through the academy and field training. It's, you know, 10 months or so before somebody's out on the street. So it's really important to focus on retention.
And a lot of that is employee development and giving them the opportunities to do other things in the department. So
There's so many things that tie into that. Just having good equipment, making sure you don't have faulty guns. I mean, you want to stay where you have good cars and you have good equipment. And I also think that the Instagram account might be fun because you can humanize yourselves there, right? And then the community feels like they know you and they feel comfortable with you. And I think that's a good thing too, other than just, you know, reporting.
And when we're fully staffed, I really like to see the bicycle and foot patrol. That'd be a great addition to downtown.
And the Citizen Academy was very popular, very well attended, and a lot of people really praised it. I mean, I think Melissa and I went to all of them. They were pretty fun too. So we had a good time talking to.
and it's not going to be the same thing regurgitated every year. We want to continue to develop it and show different aspects of things. And that's where the sheriff's department helps out with that as well.
It was nice. I mean, we had police and judges and prosecutors and public defenders. It was really informative. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, it looks like Jay might have some time up, huh?
Yeah.
He's looking back. Is there another Jay back there?
Thank you.
Oh, I'm looking at I'm just going in order, so I'm
Yeah.
sorry. No, Mark's the boss back there. You can.
Good evening, Jay Harris, your Public Works Director. So, Public Works, the department overview real quick. We added 2 departments in 2025, or 3 actually. Got Parks, Recreation, and Facilities are now in with streets, wastewater, water, stormwater, and equipment maintenance and rental. That's EM&R. So, we're busy. We got a lot of different divisions within Public Works. Going to the 6-year work plan. So this is an updated plan. I think Manager Knight, and we started preparing these, was it 2023 or was it 2022? Might have been 22. Yeah. Anyways, this has been an update for a few years. I've been adding things as they come up and then taking things off of here as when they're completed, right? So a lot of public works, we want to go from reactive to proactive maintenance. Do it once, do it right is what we say. Might take us a little more time, but we don't want to go back to things, right? So with that, one of the first things is our equipment maintenance and rental. We want to complete a study, and that's going to be in 2026, to look at some of these higher pieces of equipment, the cost of them, and the lifespan of them. Like we have a vacuum truck replacement coming up in some years. That's a $350,000 piece of equipment.
More than that.
Yeah, that's what the last
I was
one.
here, we bought it.
The last one was about 350.
350. Oh, that was 600.
I don't think so. But it was expensive, right? And the guys use it all the time. You see that out. We have a second one also. But we want to make sure that the rates being charged for the equipment, EM&R, when the street department needs to use the vacuum truck, they rent it from EM&R. And so we charge them by the hour and all that. That funds that machine and the maintenance of that machine and the replacement of that machine too, right? So we need to work on that. It'd be similar to like the water CIP and the sewer CIP, all of those things, but we need one for EM&R that's a little bit more robust. We're going to be working on that. You see the Transportation Benefit District on here. That is an important part of our action plan, you know, with it or without it, right? Then we need to get that resolved. And voters, obviously, it council matter or council driven, right? And then the last one on proactive maintenance right now is developing a schedule to replacing aging machinery and equipment at the sewer lift station and treatment plants. We have a lot of machines. These plants are getting a little older, and the lift stations are aging. And we just need to keep on top of it. It's like new police cars, new guns, same theory that we can't have a failure in these systems. We recently had a failure, a month and a half ago or so, winter storm, power outage. The generator kicked on, but it didn't switch over. Luckily, Brent Armstrong lives 5 minutes from the plant. He's down there turning dials, do what he can to get it going. They'd actually, a gate closed. We flooded our disinfection area. It burned up some equipment. Anyways, we got things going. There's about a half hour of treated water that was undisinfected that went into Oakland Bay, unfortunately. But that particular incident would be this replace aging machinery. It wasn't aging machinery, although the transfer switch is a little in question right now. And we are getting some replacement parts of that and probably going to get. That's the generator transfers back and forth between shore power and generator power. So we're looking at that. That's the culprit. It wasn't working quite right. But anyways, luckily, because of our staff getting there, turning valves, doing things, we really minimized the incidents. And we're coming up with more robust plans to circumvent that type of failure. So it's a good thing. Employee development. It's really important. A succession planning, right? Who's replacing me in the future? Those sorts of things. And so every position, we want to make sure that we have a supervisor and an assistant supervisor. The assistant should be learning the role down the road. When people go on vacation, the assistant takes over if the supervisor leaves, and that sort of thing. And then with that is just increasing our knowledge, skills, and abilities. This is online training, this is classroom coursework, that sort of thing, to make sure our people have the latest technology and the latest equipment to do their jobs better, right? And so some of the things on the current stats column over there, I wanted to sort of give an update of where we are because this has been on there for a while. So we have a weekly safety tailgate meetings with all the field workers. Public Works, all hands safety training meetings. We have a lot of those. We're actually going to implement more like Public Works meetings where it's just Public Works, not the whole city, but just down there. And we're actually working on a meeting room over there right now where we can have inside meetings because heretofore we only could do that outside. We go to the loop field or whatever. It has to be nice, right? Well, during the winter, it's hard for us to have all staff meetings down there. Really hard to grab all the trucks, come over here, have an hour meeting, and then everyone goes back, right? So we're working on some things over there. Budgets that we want to make sure that we have a professional training plan in each budget cycle. So we have enough money in the budget that in your performance review for each year, we say what your coursework's can be for that year. Then we check back to make sure you got it completed and that sort of thing. And then adequately budgeted for that. Emergency management, we've made some progress on it. We haven't made as much as I wanted to get done, but it is moving along pretty good. So some of the goals here are to better build a more accurate GIS system. So that's a water line break in the middle of the night. Okay, I shouldn't be rifling through looking for maps where all the valves are. I need to know where they are. I'm the first responder. I need to be there. I need to have an accurate system, right? And so with the AMI project, we're actually field surveying the whole water system right now. So that'll be done this year. I got the emergency fuel plan done. We're pretty set up on that. We have a 500-gallon emergency fuel tote, so we can move fuel around from our 2,000-gallon tanks. We have 2,000 diesel, 2,000 unleaded. We can get the fuel over to a treatment plant or a lift station to run the backup generator, that sort of thing. We're going to be working with the storm system later soon in GIS with the comp plan update. We're going to, when we go out for that, part of the consultant services are going to be to get our storm system better in GIS. So that should work out pretty good. The emergency power generation plan was completed this year. It shows that we have old generators and we need to be budgeting for the replacement of newer generators. The generator here for this building is 20 plus years old, 25, yeah. We can't run them, you know, and it probably only has 200 hours on it, right? But then if it does break, trying to get parts for it for a 25-year-old generator, it's a problem, right? Then you end up having to buy a new generator. Well, we need to plan for some of these replacements.
I just saw that for the first time the other day. It's as big as a car.
Yeah. They're big, run, you know, all the services and all the requirements of this building, it needs to be pretty big. You look at the one at the wastewater plant though, it's big, it's a semi truck. I mean, it's huge, yeah. So, the incident command training, we're working on that. A bunch of people have completed a bunch of coursework on that. The goal is to check off more people this year to get the training behind them. That just helps when you go to an emergency, forms, processes, chain of command, that sort of thing. Emergency operations center flow chart has been done. The city emergency communications plan is being worked on. The water distribution plan isn't quite put together on exactly where, when, why, all that. But we do have the budget this year in the budget to buy an emergency water filtration trailer, which is big, that if we lose power to the wells or in a large earthquake, they can stand up and the pumps don't work. We're going to back up water sources, creek, and that sort of thing, drawing water out, treating it. People need a gallon a day of water to survive. You can go quite some day without food, but you need water pretty soon. So we want to get one of those trailers and figure out a real central spot with a goal to probably have a few more. So people are walking, they can walk, get some water and get back home again if the roads aren't passable, right? So I want to do some tabletop exercises with other agencies, Mason County. I've been working with Public Works up there on that. Work on the emergency management plan and the COOP, the continuity of operations plan. We've got a good draft going around through departments, and then it'll be coming this year to council for approval. And then the emergency management webpage is the last thing. It's been completed and it's actually posted, but it isn't easy to find right now on our website. I got to talk to Mary about that. So that's good, really good resources on the emergency management web page. So public outreach, we need to get out and just make sure people know what Public Works is and, you know, how we keep this city running for them. That we got some informational handouts we want to do. We do some classroom and group tours, but we can do more of that. Typically, I have an admin assistant helping me with this type of outreach. We show up, go to the high school, give a presentation for a half hour or so. We've gone up to the library every month, and it's called Touch a Truck. We've been taking different things in up there. That program's worked out real good. And then also public events. We all can get out there a little more, you know, police, public works, that sort of thing, and a few more community events. And just have a booth, some information and show some cool things, talk to people where their water comes from and that sort of thing. And then our Public Works homepage, you know, project updates have gotten better. We're doing good on that. Water line flushing, we don't have the routes on there all the time, that sort of thing. The street sweeping map is on there, and the snow plowing and sanding routes was just recently updated on there, so that's pretty good. So then the environment, we want to minimize negative impacts on the environment, resulting from our activities. So the wastewater treatment plant failure, it's a failure, right? We weren't cited by the Department of Ecology because it was an act of God. This was, and we had backup plans. Things went wrong though in that plan. We need to fix those, but we still had an impact. Right, for a half hour, we had an impact on Oakland Bay, and we want to make sure we're not doing that, right? And then, like our stormwater program, we're our phase 2 stormwater permit. We keep getting new requirements every year, so you're going to see a lot of different things coming out of our stormwater program.
Is that going to be upgrading what we've already have? Because the developments now will have to keep the water on their own site. So is this for the existing infrastructure that we have to upgrade?
Yeah, our existing infrastructure, we also have to make sure that these private stormwater facilities are being maintained appropriately too. That's the city's responsibility.
We're monitoring discharges from, private businesses like a radiator shop, for example, that when they're draining fluids and that sort of thing, they're being discharged appropriately. We're required to go to each business on a rotating plan of about 4 years. We got to hit every one of them and keep going back and fill out surveys and ask questions and look at the site. So the stormwater permit compliance is big. We have a Kenny Oberg's our stormwater person right now. He's also an engineering technician. We are looking in the stormwater rates. There was another FTE in there, and so we put out a job posting, and we're going to be interviewing here in the next week or so qualified candidates. We got a good turnout for that. So, anyways, that's what this number 3 was on environment. That's the NPDES phase 2 permit. That's stormwater. So technology. So. It's amazing when I started and what we have now. It's absolutely incredible, the stuff we've had way back when and what we're doing now. So a lot of it is our EAM system, that's Enterprise Asset Management, that uses GIS, fire hydrants over there, it's in GIS, EAM grabs that fire hydrant number, says, hey, that thing was put in 1952. The last time you were there was 2 years ago. Here's a work order. You need to get back to that hydrant again, and you need to check the seals. It might need to be painted, whatever. So that's what EAM does for us. And so we're slowly implementing the work order system. In EM&R, they're doing all the fleet work orders. In EAM, streets is probably 60 to 75%. And then water is probably a 50-50 right now. Parks and Recreation has not started. So we're working on getting this work order system in. That way you don't forget about things too. So that's that faucet that freezes over there if you don't go do something in September or October, right? Those are really important. That's proactive maintenance that's keeping you from bringing a plumber out to fix it next spring. Or worse yet, you flood a building or something, right? So walk by radio reads already on there. AMI is going in. We're at probably a couple hundred meters now, getting close to that.
It's 170 last week.
Yeah, they're doing 15 a day. So we're about 200 meters of 3,000 something, right? So we're making headway there. So that will be done this year. That will be big. And then that's drive-by radio or walk-by radio read. We're going to go to fixed-base radio read a year or two out. That would be more of an antenna-based system that is run up in the customer service department. So then policies and procedures, we're working on the engineering standards manual. We're going to have that back to you guys. We keep working on SOPs. Mark got us last year and said, hey, update these SOPs. We went and did a bunch. I'm assuming he's going to give another directive this year for another batch of them. But anyways, they're good to follow the SOPs and then just templates, forms, that sort of thing. We're continually updating those. Most of that's private development, and those are found on our website for the developers to use. So that's my update.
Question, I didn't see anything in here or I missed it about doing smoke testing. Is that a priority still? Making sure that we're not putting stormwater in our sewer system? I didn't see anything in here as a priority.
Yeah, so that's I&I testing in different basins, and that's inflow and infiltration. And that project is scheduled for next year. I'm pretty sure we're going to do basin 6, I think is what it was. So we have that scheduled for next year to start on that.
We were talking about testing like private, making sure that we don't have stormwater going in the sewer.
We don't have downspouts.
Yeah, downspouts and stuff
We
like
still
that.
take advantage of that when the, new development or redevelopment of the buildings or structures where they're tying in, their stormwater improvements, and we'll check those off as they become available, but we'll have to take basin projects as a whole and really incorporate a more intensive testing and investigation like that that they face. But we take advantage of that because we can.
If you could refresh my memory about the gallons that we use through our sewer system in the summer and in the wintertime. That's huge
Yeah.
because it's
Big
stormwater.
difference. You know, we go
Millions.
from, under 2 million gallons a day treating sewer during the summer to peaking at sometimes 8, 9 million gallons a day. But we can handle that kind of sewer going through there, but that's because
stormwater,
of the
though.
pipe joints, groundwater going in during the winter. It takes a while for the groundwater to come up and start running in. Those are just old pipes. That could be a main line or that could be a service lateral with someone's house, right? Well, on that service lateral, you also have people that have connected their building roof drains to it. And so when you do a smoke test, you go to a manhole, they blow the smoke in, and where it comes out over there, you know, it's called a cross connection to the storm system, and you don't want that, or to the sewer system, I'm sorry, storm connected to sewer. So anyways, we'll be doing some of that next year.
Are we, and one last question, sorry, I'll let everybody else ask a question. The basins that are left required by ecology to be replaced or changed out, is there like 2 left now? Was there, because basin 3 was the biggest one, right? Or there's basin 4. I've been here too long.
Yeah, I think we have 4, 5, and 6 left, and 6 was the smallest, we were trying to pick that off, when I recall, but we still have 4 and 5 after that.
And 4 is the big one, right? Big one?
Where's I think Mountain View?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah,
No.
because
East side of Olympic Highway.
but not as important, but like 3 was downtown and the water
Yeah.
table, so that's why.
It's older down here.
Yeah.
It's up on Mountain View.
Yeah,
Newer developments, right? You're talking 60s, 70s down here. You're talking 30s, 40s.
Also, the soils up there infiltrate well, so the
Yeah.
groundwater doesn't come up as high.
so what's our timeline to finish those up? 10 years or?
Great question.
Yeah, it's, I have all of that on my 6-year CIP, then the bottom of 6 years, I have the other projects that we just haven't got to yet, and that's some of those. But those type of projects are grant eligible for some of them, but we do need RAID money, right, for those also. So, matching money.
Any questions? Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
I'm sure that's street sweeping. Okay, that's how you make a note, right?
Oh,
Okay, good.
Or just one thing about street sweeping, when we go sand hits the ground, goes on the snow and the ice, whatever, then it can lay there for some days, right? We do have 2 street sweepers and we really try to get that sand up. Now, if there's gonna be another snowfall event though, you might see it there for some days, because there's no reason to go pick it up if you're just gonna go put it back down again. Hopefully, keep your fingers crossed, we should be done with snow this year, but now I probably do.
I see a lot of birds, a lot of flowers coming up right now.
It's almost March.
It's almost March.
I've seen March snow, but,
We got some good wind last night though, that's for sure, that kept us busy.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
is that it
Thank
from
you.
you?
That's it.
All right.
Everybody, yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say, council, we have another 30-minute presentation. Does anybody want a 5-minute break?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Just making sure, we can get another 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, 5-minute recess.
All right. Thanks.
Oh, hello. Yeah, I wanted to introduce Julianne Gale and her group from the Cedar Stewards of Mason County, OSMIC. They got a grant from Commerce to make a presentation about homelessness in Mason County. They gave this presentation to the county. Now they're giving it for us in the city. So I invited them here and their testimony. And I'm just proud of the youth at Cedar High to coming here and making their voice heard and to share their presentation and the facts that they found. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much for having us. I'm Julianne Gale. I'm with Mason County Climate Justice, and Cedar Stewards of Mason County, or COSMIC for short, is our youth civic engagement and leadership development program. I'm just going to invite each of the Cedar High School students to just say their names, see what they are. And like Miguel said, we got a grant from the Department of Commerce to make sure that there is public participation in the comprehensive plan update, especially from vulnerable populations and overburdened communities, the kinds of folks who don't always get their voices heard. And, you know, I've been in some of your city council meetings where it's been very contentious in terms of the housing crisis. And so we didn't want to just focus on the problems. We wanted to really be solutions focused and talk about how the comp plan is a huge opportunity to solve some of the problems that you hear over and over, residents coming to complain. All right, so there are updated requirements in the comprehensive plan housing element. And this is because compared to the last time we did a comp plan update, House Bill 1220 passed, and it has new requirements to handle housing. So for example, number one, document housing needs at each income level. And you might wonder, what does each income level mean? Well, there's a handy dandy chart from the Department of Commerce describing what it means to document what the needs are at each income level.
Number two, identify and undo racial disparities.
And what that means is looking at racially disparate impacts, displacement, and exclusion in housing.
Number three, provides for existing and projected needs.
And that means you need to have actions in the comp plan to address barriers to housing availability at each of those same income levels.
Number four, identify sufficient land capacity.
And number five,
Urban growth area statement.
we don't have time to cover all of these things. This is a summary from the Department of Commerce's summary. We're going to focus just on 1, 2, and 3 in this presentation because that's the thing that we think we have the best information about. So number one, documenting housing needs. I want to say that a lot of the data that we have will be county-wide, and that is because when you look at American Community Survey data from the US Census, we wanted to have the most recent available data, but 1 year ACS data is only statistically relevant if you have at least 50 or 60,000 people, which the city of Shelby is far, far below that. And so to promote currency, as well as because our grant is specifically around the whole county, and because many data sources only do county level and not city level, we focused, the data comes from there, and as much as possible, we hold city specific things. And if there's more city specific stuff you want, we can look at it and see what we can grab. So this is from the Department of Commerce. This is their most recent report on Mason County about what's changed since the last comp plan and how are we doing? How are we doing at reducing housing insecurity, reducing housing disparities, increasing housing production and housing diversity, meaning different types of housing, and how are we doing at supporting housing affordability? And you can see, unfortunately, since the last comp plan, Mason County has gotten worse, a lot worse, or a little bit worse in every single indicator except 2. But it's like, hey, at least 2 are going well. Unfortunately, because of government bureaucracy, it takes a long time for these charts to be approved. And so this chart actually relies on 2022 data. And the percentage of households experiencing cost burden, which was slightly improved, actually got significantly worse in 2023, and I'll share that data in a minute. And then the total housing unit production, that indicator is also out of date because housing production dropped after 2021, especially for multifamily housing units. So what housing are we required to plan for in this complex? Now, this is county-wide, and the exact numbers may be slightly different because this is from the most recent Commerce report and things got voted on, but this is the rough scale. And it's county-wide because the county and the city have to agree on where is the new housing going to go. And in many cases, the Growth Management Act is encouraging lack of sprawl and the infill development so that you have increased density in the incorporated cities and in the UGAs and not in the rural areas. So you can see that there are, I just want to point out it's divided by income level, which is defined as percent of median family income. And I just want to define one of the acronyms here. PSH stands for permanent supportive housing. So for the very low and extremely low income folks, there's two different kinds of housing needed. One is permanent supportive housing. That's like the Shelton Veterans Village, where you have social services, you have addiction recovery, you have mental health treatment, and folks need the extra support to stay housed. But there's a lot of folks who are just poor. They don't need mental health treatment. They don't have addiction problems. They just need housing. And you can see percentage-wise the growth. So the blue is 2022 housing supply, and the purple is what's needed in the next 20 years. And you can see percentage-wise, it's really the extremely low-income housing that we're missing. How were those numbers developed? So this again is borrowed from the Department of Commerce. They took the, if we were going to house everybody who's already here in Mason County and already homeless. So housing for the baseline homeless population. Then housing to eliminate the baseline renter cost burden, meaning renters who are spending more than 30% of their income on housing. And new people moving into the area. So additional housing to accommodate population growth. And that leads to the projected net new units needed by income. This is for actual housing. And then what they call emergency housing, which I wouldn't even really call housing, it's emergency shelters. And so that number comes from baseline homelessness, plus all the additional people who are likely to become homeless if current conditions persist and we don't address these things.
Median housing prices in Mason County have doubled since 2016. This has left middle class families in the dust. And honestly, as someone who one day want to be middle class and wants to own a decent home, maybe raise a family, this is scary. I mean, I have a sister who just had a child in their 20s, and it's way too expensive for them probably to afford a house within the next 20 years, maybe.
And you might look at this and say, wow, is Mason County different than the surrounding areas? We're actually totally on trend. Every county in the area is seeing the same kind of rising costs. Now, the rising costs wouldn't be such a big deal if our incomes were rising at the same level, but they're not. This is the Housing Affordability Index. What it means is that when the Housing Affordability Index is 100, that a family making the median income has exactly enough money to qualify for a median home on the market. And for first-time home buyers, it's even tougher. And so that's generally estimated at 70% of median. So that's what the dotted line is. And you can see that in Q1 of 2013, the Housing Affordability Index was 215. That means that the average family, the median buyer in Mason, had more than twice the income they needed to buy a median price home. It used to be so affordable here. By the time you get to Q1 2024, our Housing Affordability Index was down to 86, meaning that the median buyer only has 86% of the income required to buy a median price home. And once again, we're totally on trend with the surrounding areas and even all of Washington. So what about the folks who already own a home? The previous data was the need for people trying to buy a home. What if you already have a home? So Unfortunately, this is the bad news I was telling you about ahead of time. For folks, you can see that from 22 to 2023, the housing cost burden was already high and it's increasing. More than 1 in 3 Mason County households with a mortgage are cost burdened, meaning spending more than 30% of their income on housing. And approximately 1 in 7 are spending more than half their income on housing. And even if your house is totally paid off or you bought it in cash, there are still 22% of Mason County households that are cost burdened or were in 2023. I'm sure it's worse now. That's because housing costs, this is US Census data, and they consider your mortgage, your HOA fees, your property taxes, your utilities, and the cost of food. And so we have between 2022 and 2023, the percentage of Mason County households who don't even have a mortgage, but are still spending more than 50% of their income on housing, not even including maintenance, that tripled in just 1 year. I've skipped a news story, I'm so sorry. So I'm gonna head back to Oliver to share something.
So, Oliver, I live in a household with 4 adults and 1 teenager, which is, and the possibility of my grandmother living in with us. Even though that we make roughly around like $90,000 per year, we still, by the time we pay all of our bills and we don't have, we barely make enough money to buy groceries or urgent county appointments.
And I think that gets to one of the points that one of the staff was talking about, that if you don't do the maintenance, things get more expensive. And so it's really unfortunate that we have young people and families in our community that can't afford maintenance and they're going to be struggling. And those are the types of folks that we're worried about becoming homeless if conditions don't change. So it's even worse for renters in Mason County in terms of cost burdening than it is for homeowners. Nearly half of all renter households are cost burdened here. And more than a quarter of all renter households are spending more than half their income on it. And this is actually one where we're not exactly on trend, we're worse. It's pretty obvious for the homeowners that we're higher than the surrounding areas. And then if you look at the rental units, it's like, oh, maybe we're kind of on trend, except if you look at the severely cost burden, the folks spending more than half their income on housing for renters, and that's higher than any of the surrounding counties, for which the data is accurate. We also have a policy problem here. We have limited data on rental costs in Mason County. You can see on the right what the census data says about what kinds of homes are renters renting in Mason County. And more than half are single family homes, just like Oliver's family, for example. But the statewide and national rental data doesn't really apply to Mason County because most of the statewide and national rental data, that cost data is based on housing complexes with 5 or more, or 10 or 20 or more units. And that captures just 13% of rentals in Mason. Plus, 64% of all Mason County rentals with 5+ units are low income, which makes our combined median rental costs artificially low. So it can look like when you get a housing needs assessment from a consultant that is copy pasting from, national or statewide data, it can look like our rentals are affordable, but we all know you go on Zillow or you go to Gateway or, you go on Facebook and the rentals aren't actually affordable. And then furthermore, fair market rent for 2024 is calculated by HUD using 2022 ACS census data, but median rent increased in 22 and 23 significantly. And so our housing vouchers are really in significant support. This has been a lot of bad news. I know I promised you solutions and not just bad news. So let's go there for a second. The policy problem, there's limited data on rental costs in Mason County. What can we do? Policy solution 1 is we can collect meaningful local rental data. We need the data because you can't solve the problem if you don't know what the problem is. Or you can't argue for increased limits if you can't argue why the data isn't correct. One thing that we're doing as Cosmic is an affordable housing survey that we hope everybody in Mason County takes, so that we're actually collecting real data on folks in our community. We have about 775 people in Mason County taking the survey so far, and I hope more will, and I will pass out flyers at the end if you want to. Two, it's not enough just to know the data, you have to incorporate it into policy. And number three, it would be really good to appeal the HUD income limits as recommended in the 2022 Mason County Housing Needs Assessment. And there's a process for that. It does cost money, but in the long run, it saves us money because having fewer homeless or house insecure people in our community is going to make it better and less expensive for us all. So that was housing needs. Now we're on to identifying and undoing racial disparities in housing. So BIPOC, which stands for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. So BIPOC households are more likely to be renters in Mason County and are also more likely to be cost burdened. You can see that white folks are 82, white households are 82% likely, 82% homeowners, but BIPOC households are only 53% of homeowners. And this is in Mason County. The box is Washington State overall. And then in terms of cost burdening, there's a 17.7 percentage point difference between the cost burdening for white-led households and BIPOC households. I'm going to pass it over to Araceli to say something about racial disparities in housing. Sorry for my youth who couldn't be here today, but gave me permission to tell this story. Is when he was young, there were racial slurs painted on his door. I know that we want to be a welcoming community. We don't want to have racial disparities in housing. And the comp plan is a perfect opportunity to make those shifts because this is our long-term plan. This is the 20 years. Anders, that I gave you earlier, but if you want to share your thoughts on why the comp plan is so important.
Yeah. Hello again. My name is Anderson Porter, and I'm a resident of the city. I think it is important to consider that the comp plan includes housing elements and will be effective within some for the next 20 years. And our community's goal should be to make sure everyone within Shelton has equal access to stable housing, no matter the
So when we're talking, these graphs are about all of Mason County. But actually Mason County has concentrations of where BIPOC households are. And the BIPOC households are largely concentrated in Shelton. And so undoing the racial disparities is a really big job of the city of Shelton comp plan. So this is from the Washington State Department of Health's environmental health disparities map. And so what it shows is compared statewide, what decile is each census tract in for percentage of people of color. And so you can see that Shelton is above average in terms of all of Washington State in terms of percentage of votes. And speaking back to Araceli's point, language diverse households are also concentrated in Shelton. And so some of the undoing of racial disparities is making sure that information and outreach and public participation is done in languages other than English so that people can use the languages that they're most comfortable with. So we have a policy problem. We have racial disparities in housing here in Shelton and in Mason County. What do we do about that? So here are some solutions that you can actually write into the comp plan. Because BIPOC households are more likely to be renters and more likely to be cost burdened or low income, one policy solution, the big umbrella solution, is make sure that we're prioritizing policies that support low income renters. If you support all low income renters, that will help end the racial disparities. So how do we do that? We could seek out public funding opportunities for affordable housing development and maintenance. We could figure out a way to have the right of first refusal on foreclosures to be transitioned into affordable housing. Prioritizing affordable housing that has longer lengths of affordability. So for example, I know you all are going to talk at your next study session about the multifamily tax exemption. In Washington State, it's 8 years if it's market rate multifamily housing, and then there's a choice between 12 or 20 years for low income multifamily housing. I would suggest that we think about 20 years because unless you're planning to make sure that everybody can afford market rate housing, and I'm not sure how you would guarantee that, you know, having the tax incentives for 20 years is better than 12. Otherwise, you're just kicking the can down the road and then you have to build new multifamily tax exempt low income housing.
I have a question on the tax exempt for that. Would that just be the city's portion? Or what about the schools and all the other junior districts? Everybody gets
City's portion.
just the city's portion.
On the improvements.
Okay.
Not the property.
Right.
Yeah.
itself.
But they'd still be paying on the schools, which is what,
Yes.
60% of the property taxes are schools. So
That's a great policy thing to look more into. I don't know. I can't answer that question, but what I would say is that someone told me, we gave this presentation last week to a group, and someone said that there are jurisdictions that give tax exemptions until it's converted to market rate, and then all the back taxes are owed. And so that really incentivizes keeping it affordable, but also if it does convert, it gives the jurisdiction extra money to do things like pursue other affordable ones. Other things that can happen is incentivizing affordable and multifamily housing through things like expedited permitting processes for multifamily housing, or things like multifamily units paying lower hookup fees. So for example, if every unit has to pay right now, I don't know what it is in the city, but let's say it's 100%, no matter how many units it is. If you take a duplex and you have each of them pay 80%, then developers are incentivized to create duplexes over single family homes because it'll be cheaper for them fee-wise to have one duplex instead of two single family homes. Another thing that could help is legalizing living in RVs and tiny homes on houses. We have a lot of folks who are renting in these kinds of structures, and they don't have renter protections because it's not considered a legal structure. Policy solution number 2, make opportunities accessible to BIPOC. Lived experience really matters. We can make sure that programs and public outreach are available in multiple languages. It can be really hard for BIPOC folks to come in and speak in government meetings or want to give their opinion because of the history of racism, because of the history of Shelton being a sundown town. But if you partner with organizations that already have good relationships with BIPOC communities, that will increase BIPOC participation. We can also do things to diversify leadership positions and support BIPOC in leadership positions, that folks who are already there. And then finally, there's a role in shifting the culture of racism. For example, that could look like cultural competence trainings for non-BIPOC leaders. And a third option in terms of policy solutions is tracking our progress on ending racial disparities. We want to know that what we're trying works. And the only way to do that is actually track the data. So a lot of tools already exist, federal and state. So for example, the EPA has something called the EJ screen, the Washington State Department of Health has the Environmental Health Disparities Map. There's census data. You can conduct local surveys, or you can take our data and identify some of the disparities that way. Setting a regular progress review schedule is a totally reasonable, not expensive policy statement to put in a comp plan. And then adjusting policies regularly to, as you're reviewing the progress, to better end regional disparities. So number 3, providing for existing and projected house needs. Not just knowing what the needs are, but how are we actually getting to the housing that we need. So here's the graph. Here are 2 graphs of annual building activity in all of Mason County, which I believe includes the city of Shelton, based on permits. And you can see how much building activity there is in terms of single family homes and how much building activity there is. This is units, so a number of permits in multifamily homes. And the 143 units in 2021 is not in the city of Shelton. That was in Belfair, and it's market rate, and it's pretty vacant because people can't afford to live there. And the people who can afford to live there don't. So we have a policy problem, not enough multifamily housing being built. And I keep hearing over and over, it doesn't pencil for developers. So the obvious solution, if we don't want to be spending a lot of government money on emergency services and street cleanup and social services from all of them. I used to work for community services in the transitional age youth program, and I would have youth go into mental health crises who were totally stable because they lost their house. It is expensive to not house everyone. It is cheaper for the government to invest in things that help people. And we are lagging far, far behind our neighboring counties in subsidized rentals. This graph shows the number of subsidized units per 1,000 residents, so it's equalized on population. Grace Harbor, Kitsap, Jefferson, Thurston, they're all about the same, and Mason has happened. So the bad news is there's not enough affordable housing. The silver lining is that places like Washington State wants to see equity geographically. So you show data like this in your grant applications for affordable housing projects, and you will run to the top of the list. So the solutions are investing in affordable housing, and I understand that Mason County and the city of Shelton are not wealthy, so we need to seek funding for affordable housing. And this goes back to the affordable housing tax, for example. A small amount of money invested in a staff member who can apply for these multi-million-dollar grants and get the funding, the return on investment could be astronomical. Here's just a screenshot from the 2022 housing needs assessment that just showed a huge ton of funding programs for affordable housing just in the state of Washington. And I just want to say that affordable housing is a quote from the Mason County Workforce Housing Summit in 2019. Affordable housing is not exclusively a social service issue and should be looked at as a driver of economic growth. Affordable housing can both retain as well as attract employees. Up to 80% of job growth comes from existing businesses, and they need more employees who live near where they work. And so it's not just about, like, morally, I think everyone should do that. But even if you don't agree with me on that piece, from an economic development standpoint, it is good for economic development for there to be housing in the local environment. I don't have time to get into it, but there's a link by MRSC to find other forms of funding for affordable housing for local jurisdictions. So some benefits of affordable housing. It has been proven that affordable housing lowers crime rates in distressed areas, and it has no impact on high income areas. So there's a lot of fear mongering here, and the data just doesn't play out. 2, it boosts the local economy. 3, it saves taxpayer money, can even create operating surplus for local government. I don't have time to get into those slides, but at the end in the resources section, you can see some examples from the National Home Builders Association about how local jurisdictions can actually have an operating surplus by developing multi-units. 4, it reduces the rent cost burden. Because of state preemption laws that say the state legislature is the only jurisdiction that can set rent caps, except in the case of government-owned or operated housing. So if you have local government owned or operated housing, the city of Shelton can actually control the style of getting rents that we have. And number 5, affordable housing is proven to increase property values in distressed neighborhoods. We don't have time to get into all the data, but all of those are links to give you more information. And then finally, we are living the results of not having enough affordable, not having enough housing period. As available, basic market economics, as availability goes down, prices go up. And this graph is showing that vacancy rates are inversely related to home price increases. So we need more housing to keep the housing prices down. That's the number one solution. And the same is true in terms of rental vacancy rates. And there are multiple Mason County authored reports that point out that increasing rent is the main predictor or main driver of homelessness in our county. And a study that was not adjusted for inflation, that's a little old, but it's still, you get the idea. Every $100 increase in rent is associated with a 32% increase in homelessness in non-metro areas. It would really behoove the city of Shelton to think about government housing in order to have rent caps and to do things to increase availability of housing. So the policy problem, low vacancy rates, meaning low availability. How we solve this kind of depends on what the root cause is. One root cause, which is a bigger problem in the unincorporated county, is that short-term rentals are taking up more than otherwise long-term rentals. The solution is regulations and permit fees. Another cause is a low stock of affordable and subsidized housing available, and very few new multi-family units are developed. I talked about a bunch of these solutions already. I think what I haven't talked about yet is confirmed that zoning and codes allow multi-family development and adjust if necessary, as well as community land trusts. So those are, if you can incentivize community land trusts where people come together to own the land, and then individuals own their houses, community land trusts are able to keep rents or prices. And then another cause, which again is more in the unincorporated county, is that seasonal and vacation homes are 19 to 25% of Mason County housing, depending on what calculation method you use. We have more seasonal homes in Mason County than we have rental homes in Mason County. And in fact, we have more seasonal and vacation homes in Mason County than we have all the housing we're required to create in the next 20 years. So if we converted the seasonal and vacation homes into full-time homes, that would solve housing crisis. A solution is to really incentivize long-term rentals or owner-occupied houses and disincentivize second homes unless they're long-term rentals. Just basic fairness policy, everyone gets one home before anyone gets to be. And then finally, the last housing policy issue that I think is really worth addressing is environmental health risks. I didn't put the slide in here, but there's a slide showing the lead risk in the city of Shelton as being high compared to the rest of the state and high compared to the county. And that's in large part because of the age of the homes in the city of Shelton. And I have a couple of these who want to share about their experiences too.
Hi, I'm Ash. A few years ago, I lived in an apartment for 3 years and it was infested with mold. And within 3 years that we lived there, my mom contracted pneumonia twice. My family was constantly sick.
I've been in mobile home parks in Mason County and in Shelton where the flooring is so rotted, it's subfloors in there. There's just, the wooden beams that people are walking on, and that's where they live. Things are totally exposed to extreme temperatures and elements. We also have outdoor examples of environmental health risks, septic system failure, flooding, landslides, erosion, contamination. And so the comp plan is an opportunity to address environmental health risks as one of the housing barriers. So one solution is promoting education and taking advantage of existing programs. The Department of Commerce has an indoor pollution education and abatement program. PUDs have energy retrofits and weatherization. Policy solution 2, clean up pollution before building. For example, the Goose Lake area that has, I believe, is polluted by dioxins, that should be cleaned up before any housing is put there. I saw a study that said Mason County is number 2 in cancer rates of all the counties in Washington State, second only to Tuolumne, and Tuolumne is number 1 because it's a major cancer treatment destination, which is not true. So it would behoove us to review the Department of Ecology's list of contaminated sites before approving building permits in polluted areas, and make sure that the polluters clean up the sites that they contaminate. It shouldn't fall on taxpayers to clean up after polluters. Policy solution 3 is consider climate change and planning development. These environmental health risks are only going to increase with climate change. And so that's considering things like sea level rise, flooding, how clear-cut logging leads to landslides, erosion, and windfall, incentivizing regenerative agriculture, food growing and housing developments, allowing compost toilets and greywater systems to conserve resources and lower the price of development. New Orleans sewers is a little different, but that's a little more geared towards the areas that are well-based and septic system based. So that was a lot. Here's a summary of every policy we just talked about or showed you. And it's crosswalked to the Department of Commerce's housing element checklist. So each of these things is a possibility, a way for you to meet the requirements of the Department of Commerce checklist. And this slideshow I reviewed with the Department of Commerce staff ahead of time to make sure that I was on point, I wasn't misrepresenting anything. And I also know that the Department of Commerce is going to come do a presentation for the Mason County Planning Advisory Council on next Monday, March 3rd, I believe it is. And so that's another way to get more information directly from the source as well. We didn't have time to show every slide, but there is a whole bunch of extra resources at the end of the presentation with links for you to educate yourself more. Again, we encourage everyone to take the survey and to incorporate that data. We've asked people if they're in the city or not, so we could take out all the city data and just review the city data, or the broader Shelton area as well, so we include the UGA folks. It wasn't fair to ask residents to live in the Shelton UGA because they don't know, but we can give you the broad Shelton and the Shelton data. And we would love to answer your questions, and we'd love to work with you on solving these problems so that we're not just here listening to complaints, but we're actually proactive for the next 20 years. This is the moment to think about what we're going to do.
Comments or questions?
I have a question about community land trusts. Is that something we can do downtown if we have like a creative arts district or historic district? Is that something that would be in line with something like that?
I imagine it could. I think that might be a question for the planning department. As long as zoning laws don't prohibit it.
A lot of information, good information, and appreciate your presentation.
Lot to consider.
Thank you, guys. All right.
Also, thank all the young people for being courageous to share their stories. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight. Yeah.
This is maybe less than half of the group, just not everyone.
Yeah.
The slides were created by youth who didn't even make it, and there's folks. This came about because the youth themselves said housing affordability is important, and that's what.
That's awesome that they're thinking that big, and
We appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.
thanks.
Council, have any new items on this tonight? No, I have one thing that we should congratulate our city clerk, Donna Hall, for her International Institute of Municipal Clerks. I'm going to go ahead and read the email that I received because it explains it all, so we all know what we're talking about. Dear Eric Onisco, Donna Null, City of Shelton has earned her designation of Certificate of Municipal Clerk, CMC, which was awarded by the International Institute of Municipal Clerks. IIMC grants the CMC designation to only municipal clerks who complete demanding education requirements and have a good record of significant contributions of their local government and community and state. The International Institute of Municipal Clerks, founded in 1947, has 14,000 members throughout the United States, Canada, and 15 countries. The mission of this global nonprofit corporation is to enhance educational opportunities and professional development of its diverse membership. In light of the speed of the drastic nature of change these days, lifelong learning is not only desirable, it is necessary for all the local government to keep pace with growing demands and changing needs of the citizens we serve. Your city can take immense pride in Donna's educational accomplishments and achievements of this milestone. On behalf of the IIMC Board of Directors, I'm honored to endorse the conferring the CMC to Donna and all CMC of the City of Shelton. We share your pride and achievement, and we applaud your support for the role Donna plays in your city. And that is sincerely from Lisa Garcia, President.
We already knew you were awesome.
Yes.
So.
Mark, do you have anything to say about Donna?
You know, I mean, you all know the importance of her plays. Beyond that, it's what Donna does personally, right? And the dedication she has to the city and this community, her willingness to work across, you know, all the departments here. She's just a beautiful person here. So we really appreciate everything she does, as well as educating herself and making sure that we have the best service possible for our city clerk, for our community.
Agreed. We're lucky to have you.
Thank you.
All righty. We don't have any other items for discussion. So our next meeting will be on March 4th. I will be out. So Deputy Mayor will be handling that meeting. Outside of our consent agenda, we'll have a resolution, intent to annex land in the city limits, Thurston Mason Behavioral Health contract. And that looks like that's it so far. It could change, but that is it. So if nothing else, we are adjourned at 7:53 p.m.